So, Attorney General Barr, our Attorney General, who was newly appointed under President Trump, gave a speech at the Federalist Society. And the Federalist Society is a society of lawyers. And, one reason I just love this speech is that Attorney General Barr is an intellectual force to be reckoned with. I mean, he's brilliant. He is a historian about the Constitution. He is a researcher. He's a thinker. And he has confidence in his views. He has confidence in what he thinks, what he knows the Constitution means, what the rights are of a president to within the structure of the Constitution, what the rights are of President Trump, what they were of President Obama, what the actors are all doing in Washington. He has command of the law in a way that many past attorneys general did not have. And not just the law, it's a larger sense. It is a larger sense of the place of the Constitution, the purpose of the government, the purpose of the three branches. He's a deep thinker, and he spoke at the Federalist Society, and much to the chagrin of the leftists in this country, because he really came on very strong in this speech of the Federalist Society to talk about the what is happening in America today. And so I have Matt, the very wonderful producer. And actually, I always say that really fast. I really do have a very wonderful producer, Matt Stoker, here at Real News PR, Real News Communications Network. He is a very always reliable, responsible. I send him last-minute clips, last-minute changes, and he's just been wonderful. So I really appreciate him. And here we go. I want him to play this little clip. This is Attorney General Barr speaking at the Federalist Society.
I wanted to choose a topic this afternoon for this afternoon's lecture that had an originalist angle, and it will likely come as little surprise to this group that I've chosen to speak about the Constitution's approach to executive power. I deeply admire the American presidency as a political and constitutional institution. I believe it is one of the great and remarkable innovations in our Constitution and has been one of the most successful features of the Constitution in protecting the liberties of the American people. More than any other branch, it has fulfilled the expectations of the framers. Unfortunately, over the past several decades, we have seen the steady encroachment on executive authority by the other branches of government. This process, I think, has substantially weakened the function of the presidency to the detriment of the nation. And this afternoon, I would like to expand a bit on these themes. First, let me say a little about what the framers had in mind in establishing an independent executive in Article 2 of the Constitution. The grammar school civics class version of our revolution is that it was a rebellion against monarchical tyranny, and that in framing our Constitution, one of the preoccupations, the main preoccupation of the founders, was to keep the executive weak. This is misguided. By the time of the Glorious Revolution of 1689, monarchical power was effectively neutered and had begun its steady decline. Parliamentary power was well on its way to supremacy and was effectively in the driver's seat. By the time of the American Revolution, the patriots well understood that their prime antagonist was an overweening Parliament. Indeed, British thinkers came to conceive of Parliament as the very seat of sovereignty.
His speech is lengthy, and that's also linked, by the way, on our website, americancaniwetalk.org. Again, on the homepage, under shows, scroll down, and there's a link to his speech. I really encourage you to listen to all, although it is quite lengthy. 3 points I want to make about it. One is, this is Attorney General Barr, the current Attorney General, and he's in at a meeting which he realizes is being televised. He knows that he's going to be criticized, but he came forth with some pretty powerful things that I want to share with you that he had to say. One is that he talked about there's just this endless effort of the American left and the media, which is just one big glob. I always call them the Democrat media mob. but a constant effort to say that President Trump is shredding the Constitution. And you hear people use it. He's shredding the Constitution. And Barr said, when I ask him what exactly you're referring to, I get vacuous stares followed by sputtering about the travel ban or some such thing. And he went on to say, Attorney General Barr went on to say that this president is certainly non-traditional. He's not like your typical Beltway guy. But he said, what I'm talking about today are fundamental constitutional precepts. The fact is, and this is Attorney General Barr's words, the fact is that this administration's policy initiatives and proposed rules, including the travel ban, have transgressed neither constitutional nor traditional norms and have been amply supported by the law and patiently litigated through the court system to vindication. He's pointing out that when the courts finally, and really, you can't even count on the district and appellate courts, the Supreme Court that actually still tries to apply the law, all of what President Trump has done is within constitutional norms. The travel ban, which I don't use that term, is like the Protect America, require vetting from people from terrorist countries executive order. But in any case, he's defending and saying, as the top legal mind, or at least top legal figure in our country outside the Supreme Court, nothing President Trump has put in place violates the Constitution or federal law. He also said, indeed, measures undertaken by this administration seem a bit tame when compared to some of the unprecedented steps taken by the Obama administration's aggressive exercises of executive power, such as, under its DACA program, refusing to enforce broad swaths of immigration law. So point number one, he's saying President Trump is not violating the Constitution or federal law or existing constitutional norms. President Obama did. Number two, he's saying he called out the resistance. He actually talked about, as soon as President Trump won this, the resistance emerged. And these are people who just were pretty much on the kind of everyday guy resistance person, just outraged that their gal Hillary did not win. That's what they're outraged about. And they cannot believe a guy who will not salute. And this is going to tie back to our discussion in the last segment about what's happening in the impeachment. They can't believe someone who doesn't understand that the deep state really rules this country. And this is what Hillary understands, and Trump was saying no to. And Trump said, drain the swamp, the deep state is not going to run this country. So what the second point that you had Attorney General Barr making in this Federalist Society speech was this basic idea that the resistance is not just a kind of, political discussion, one side versus the other. He described it as is waging a scorched earth, no holds barred war of resistance against this administration. It is the left that is engaged in the systematic shredding of norms and the undermining of the rule of law. And one more sentence. This highlights a basic disadvantage that conservatives have always had in contesting the political issues of the day. Basically, that on the conservative side, we have old, as he called them, curmudgeonly Federalist people in an essay. Basically, we don't fight. The conservatives don't fight. Third point he made is what progressive politics are really always about. In any age, the so-called progressive treat politics as their religion. Their holy mission, H-O-L-Y, holy mission, is to use the coercive power of the state to remake man and society in their own image according to an abstract ideal of perfection. Whatever means they use is therefore justified because by definition, they are virtuous people pursuing a deific end. They're willing to use any means necessary to gain momentary advantage in achieving their end, regardless of collateral consequences and the systemic implications. They never ask whether the actions they could take could be justified as a general rule of conduct equally applicable to all sides. It was a very powerful speech. As you might imagine, the American left is out of their minds. People calling for his resignation, calling for him to be impeached as Attorney General, because how dare he say these things? And people, I got to tell you, I think I respect the daylights out of Attorney General Barr. I think he's extraordinary. I think he's a gifted thinker, and he's a gifted, tactician, and he has the quality the left thought they only had a stranglehold on, which is relentlessness. Attorney General Barr didn't just take the Mueller report and say, okay, we're done. Mueller said, no crime here, no collusion, no obstruction, move on. What happened after the Mueller report came out is that Attorney General Barr said, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to understand how in the world this complete hoax got cooked up inside the FBI, DOJ, who did it, what crimes might they have committed. And so this is a speech, whether you think it is appropriate or it's certainly not customary for the Attorney General to make a speech of this magnitude during the time he's actively serving. Although I will say, for people getting all bent out of shape, they ought to take a look at some things that Attorney General Holder said under the Obama administration. He wasn't a silent little mouse sitting back saying nothing. Attorney General Barr is one of the few characters in this country with a national microphone, a national voice, and I argue an actual responsibility to the preservation of America to point out how extreme, radical, and out of line, out of bounds the American left has become. He's doing exactly what a patriot would do. He's saying what must be said in these times because we just have to understand, folks, this is a battle for keeps. This is a battle, and what we're facing from the American left is a battle for the preservation of America as founded. Withdrawal, concession, conceding, compromise cannot be on the table with them. They are about destroying America, destroying the right of the people to choose the president, and tying back to the deep state. What you're seeing on the American left is they've decided, as this ambassador who's whining about losing her job, as you heard Vindman, the lieutenant colonel, basically saying that because he's a member of the National Security Council and he has opinions about the Ukraine, he's entitled to tell the Ukrainian officials to ignore the president because he's wrong. And we, the deep state, we, them, and we run this place. That mindset lives in the American left. It lives in it's the mindset of the socialist, the George Soros, the NGOs, the State Department, the DOJ, the FBI are filled with people who think they're entitled to rule. They find President Trump's willingness to stand up, to say what's true, to fight for what's true, to push back. They find it shocking beyond belief because there has not been a conservative in the history of America in the last 100 years who has stood up in this manner against the monolithic left that marches in step to destroy this country with the help of left-wing media. And given all those circumstances, I am so proud and so grateful for Attorney General Barr having had the backbone and the strength of character to make that speech.